All right, so yeah, to get us started, I want to have someone come up and talk about the nuts and bolts of it and how how it came about and a little bit of the history of it. He came from halfway around the world in New Zealand, where it's already Saturday morning.
It is.
So here he is, the man from tomorrow, Dr. Brett Cameron.
Don't leave, John. You might need you to fight with the technology.
You gotta switch us out.
Yeah.
End slideshow. End slideshow. Begin slideshow.
All right. Okay, thanks, John. So let's see if miracles work. Yes, they do. Okay. We're back to what I consider normality. Okay, so basically I just want to talk maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes on how this VMSSPI thing came about. I'm not going to go into any great technical details. I'm just kind of responsible for creating this Frankenstein monster, and maybe it's not that much of a monster, it's just a little monster. But John is basically taken up the mantle of helping people to use it and do useful things with it. I'm just the one that comes up with crazy stuff, and John turns it into reality and makes it do good stuff. So the history of this thing actually started a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we were looking at doing some sort of managed service deal. It was a relatively small deal, and I can remember Dave Sullivan, call him Sully because there were too many Daves in the company, and Sully was saying, how are we going to monitor this thing, Greg? What can we do? We don't really have any good tools for this sort of stuff. And I just started digging around and thought, it's kind of interesting. And I really don't know what led me to this old VMSSPI thing, which was this old agent that was used by HP OpenView on VMS. So what the heck? Let's have a look at the code. Well, first thing I noticed was the code wasn't very pretty, but I can accept that. Not all programmers are artists like myself. And so I had a look at this code, and what I realized was that there were literally only 2 or 3 points within the code where it interfaced with OpenView, right? Okay, something has happened on the system that needs to send an alert. Okay, let's send the alert to OpenView. No idea how you communicate with OpenView. Frankly, I don't care. All I was interested in was the observation that there were literally only a couple of tools, I think it was literally 2, maybe 3, that was some sort of interface into OpenView. So thought crosses my mind, hey, I can actually get this damn thing to talk to something else, right? How hard can it be? Okay, that's part of the puzzle. I also need to consider some other things with all the different alerts and so forth that the OpenView agent knew about. But these things were just sitting in some sort of text file, and I wrote a conversion tool and came up with, John will show you the messages file later on, which defines how things hang together. But basically what I did was completely decoupled it from OpenView, and I thought, where do we want to send these alerts? And I'm thinking about some of our customers and so forth. And customers these days, large enterprise organizations, they typically have some central incident management system, software as a service, cloud-based service, whatever. So some of the modifications I did to VMSSPI and that interface that used to talk to OpenView are now dynamically loadable modules that you can say, hey, I want to see my alerts to Splunk, or I want to see my alerts to Datadog, or through to Dynatrace, or John quite likes sending them to one of our Slack channels internally. And email is somewhat ubiquitous in this situation. People like to get sent an email at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, the system's broken. But the idea was to make this thing a lot more flexible than it ever used to be. So it's not tied to OpenView, it's not really tied to anything. You can hook it up with the services I've listed there to manage your alerts and so forth. In terms of functionality, VMSSPI comprises pretty much those 3 main modules that I've listed there. System, which obviously, as its name implies, is looking at things that are happening on the operating system. How are your shadow sets looking, disks, queues, etc., any problems there. Performance. Do you have some process that seems to be stuck in an infinite loop or something like that, some sort of CPU loop? Do certain processes appear to be using too many resources, and so on and so forth? Security. There's something nasty happening on the system that might be good for your incident management system to know about. You know, is somebody obviously trying to log in, hack in or something because their password failures, whatever. We've also got an experimental module in there, which is actually shipping with the product, but it's not really documented, but it will evolve over time and probably get more use. But basically, to obviously VMSSPI, in order to do these three things, it needs to collect some data from the running system. And that includes some metrics, performance-related metrics. You get a question, Mark?
Quick yes or no, is that intended to be a replacement for T4?
Not at all, no.
Okay.
But it's not a bad question. I mean, what you're talking about here with Prometheus and Grafana, Lauren, is essentially real-time monitoring of what's going on. Okay. Whereas, and we've got Liam here all the way from Australia.
I was about to say you can maybe produce some T4 data. Got that documents on.
Yeah.
Basically, do more metrics.
But I think what you're looking at doing there makes total sense. You're still using T4 for that. You know, if we want to do a deep dive into
Right.
things, or you know, go back in time or whatever.
Yeah, so my person to produce some generalized stuff, whereas I'm sure something like things.
Yep.
It's not great, whereas you can manipulate the VMSSPI metrics a bit better.
Great.
I'll just add before I forget as well. You know, one of the other things we added, I don't think I put it on any of the slides, but I'm sure John will talk about it, is that, you know, VMSSPI for Open really just did that monitoring and alerting. We've added some additional functionality here, you know, in addition to being able to send the alerts to different incident management systems, whatever you want to call them. We've also included functionality which I refer to as actions. So, for example, if SPI is set up to monitor a process and that process disappears, you can actually have SPI run an action script, do something. So, you know, if you're monitoring Apache and all of a sudden Apache's not there, well, just rerun the Apache startup or something like that. Okay. So I think you'll talk about that for sure. So I'm not going to go through all this because we need to get through John's slides, which will be a lot more interesting, but just at a really high level, the system module, these are the sorts of things that check at regular intervals, and obviously that regular interval is configurable. I think it's 60 seconds or something by default for this stuff, but you can configure that interval. And the little graphic I've got down there is an alert or whatever that I simulated being sent in Datadog. Okay, Datadog's a pretty neat tool, but you know, it's just one of the solutions. Like you say, Liam, you're using Splunk. They all do pretty much the same thing. Performance module, it monitors the sorts of resources that we've got here, and it'll report on some of these sorts of situations. You know, is Buffer.io looking a bit too high? Is Direct.io looking too high? Is some LAN device getting a bit saturated? I mentioned we've been processed and so forth before. So over here with my Datadog alert, you know, whatever I was doing on the system at the time triggered a Buffer.io rate seems to be above the threshold. Okay, so John will talk about how you configure those thresholds. All very simple. The security module, pretty much anything that comes out of the audit server is fair game here, and I'm sure John will give you some words of caution, which Liam knows very well, about configuring this particular module up. Okay, so just a simple example here. I think this is, yeah, this is, I sent myself an email or something like that. So it's telling me that, you know, Cameron user can modify SysUAF, but the username Biggles or something like that.
You got that slide. I hate to.
Yeah, that's not worrying.
You really got my info. But I see alignment faults on the notice.
No, you don't see alignment faults.
Like there's system services built in.
Yeah, I am.
Oh,
Send me an email. Send me an email. It's, you know,
I've always got a wish.
hey, I'm not going to implement functionality on the fly. Well, not today.
No, okay, but it's not there now. That's what I meant.
But yeah, send me an email. Remind me,
Sure.
because it's not a done thing. No.
Yeah. Got it.
And to be honest, these things are not necessarily too difficult to incorporate. It's just, you know, I'll have a chat with John and Lauren's
I get that.
So we'll have a discussion about it. But in terms of configuration, I'm definitely not going to go through this in detail because I know John's got slides to cover it. But essentially, there are kind of two files. There's the main configuration file, which I would say is if you had an old OpenVMSSPI configuration file, it's probably going to work with this new implementation. What we've done is add to rather than take away. So if you've currently got one of these things, it's going to be okay. But we've added some other bits and pieces that, as I say, added on properly. So in general terms, configuration, the main configuration file allows you to define all these things. The processes you want monitored, the disks you want monitored, batch queues, batch jobs, and not only what you want monitored, but for some of these things, when you want them monitored. Like, if you expect a batch job to be running between midnight and 2 in the morning, for example, but you don't care outside of that window, you can configure that sort of thing up. The messages file, which is basically, it started out being really kind of a syntax that I created, where I took the alert definitions, if you like, from OpenView and splodged them into this thing that I was creating. But then I realized that we also needed some additional information in there. So it describes the characteristics and the properties of all the alerts that can be raised by all the VMSSPI modules, yeah, for sure. But it also includes information about how those alerts will be reported. So, for example, do you want the alerts to be reported via one of those dynamically loadable modules? Just want people via email. You've always got email if it's complete. And John will show you examples of that.
You're putting a lot on.
I'm just kidding.
You'll be right. So performance metrics, I mentioned that this is, kind of experimental, and it's going to grow over time. But essentially, these are just some of the metrics that VMSSPI uses just during the course of normal operation. So I kind of thought, well, hey, why don't we expose those and try to do something useful with them? So for example, here I've just got a very, very simple Grafana dashboard. And there's really not too much happening on that particular system. I suspect I've probably just done a few compilations or something like that. And I'm only monitoring a few metrics. What have I got? I don't know, probably CPU, buffer IO, direct IO, maybe LAN utilization, memory or something. But, if you've never played around with some of this stuff, it's actually pretty easy to configure up and get going. I know Brad Norm makes use of Grafana. Yeah, bit of a wizard. I'm not a wizard at it. But it's not too hard to pull together some pretty nice looking graphs and do this kind of thing. I just make a point down here because this is, we had a customer, and Debbie knows who I'm talking about, said, hey, we want to monitor stuff. And I said, well, what do you want to monitor? And the answer is, well, everything. And I'm going, right. So you want every single metric that I can get you off of VMS, and you want me to push that off the system in their real time into your, Dynatrace or wherever. Bad idea. No one's going to want to analyze all that junk. They really are not. And this comes back to, Liam's comment. Just, monitor in real time, the main kind of indicators, the sensible stuff. If you have a problem, you've got T4 or something like that there, you can always go back and mine that data to get additional information. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle comes into play in somewhat twisted way here, that making the measurements actually starts to influence your results. Okay. So, think about it.
The process is brilliant because it really isn't the right kind of replacement for a modern system. It was just snapshots at a time. You don't get a sense of the history of
Well,
here's a trace.
I can give you a demo later, but if you haven't looked at this stuff, Lauren, I'd suggest doing so. But one of the things, I have to excuse me, but you probably can't see it on the screen, but over here you can say, well, how far back do I want to look? And you can say go for like a few days. And you can set the refresh rate, things like that. So you've actually got some control over the window to look at. And you can put multiple graphs on one plot, set colors, change the axis labels, little axis. But you can spend hours with it.
You can't. Yes. But this is exactly the diagnostic you need when you have the answer to the question of a user. How come things are slow today?
If I want a good looking user interface, I could eat.
Up to 10 and
Yep.
Flow processors on the out are
Yeah, yeah.
saturated. So I mean, this, thank you.
And yeah, just a little bit of I am not paid by the Prometheus sort of but no, it's really simple to get going and you can have a lot of fun with it. Yeah. So just a quick summary from me. I think what we've come up with here is, it's not too heavy, it's not too light. That's actually part of a breakfast cereal commercial back home in New Zealand. But you know what I mean. It's not trying to do everything. It does enough, probably a bit more than enough to actually be really quite useful. It's pretty straightforward to get going, but there are some subtle nuances that we'll hear about. And it's becoming quite an important tool for us and for some of our customers. And there's some interesting future plans. I'm not saying that they're going to turn into reality, but in some way or other, they may well be factored into the plan. So I'll leave it there and over to you, John.
Thank you. One moment. Get switched
I
over.
leave them to do.
I would really like for this to work, but. It works. There we go. All right, just quick show of hands. How many people are already using SPI? How many are looking into it? And how many have already checked out their hotel and just want some time for sign up? All right. All right. Oh, they're not gonna have any faith in me. I can't even remember the pointer. Okay, so first thing, the kits are available on the VSI portal. SPI software package 1219. Now it comes with a 90-day demo period, free period. And after that, if you want to get a permanent license for it, you just contact sales at VMS Software. And this is a screenshot of what it looks like. Right now, the current version is 9.24. If you don't have an SP portal account, you can contact Fabulous support. They do that to create the SP account.
Right, their portal account is peaceful.
Yeah. Okay.
For ISVs, it's.
If they send mail to that, list.
Yeah.
So this is right now I'm going to install this on. Oh, first of all, I opted not to do a live demo because there's certain moving parts I could go along and I want to spend the thing chasing. So I just did some. I did a lot of screenshots, and I used the Elder font, which is like 24, 26, 26. This is a procedure I threw together to kind of be able to start in our lab systems. We run different versions of things and break them and whatever. So this once I get some a little more error trapping in here, I'm going to submit this to have this as part of maybe one of the tools. So through the magic of PowerPoint, I just ran the installation. There's nothing really fancy about it. Usual question: want to continue configuration? Doesn't have any settings. Execution phase done, and it just reminds you to put the startup and shutdown in standard. So there are. It will create a VMSSPI dialer startup shutdown and then VMSSPI dialer logical. Now the default ones creates three. There's a VMSSPI dialer root, data, and log. So if we look at the VMSSPI dialer data logical area right now, we just have that messages.txt file in there, but it's a template, so we're going to have to do something. Excuse me. So we copy the messages.txt template to messages.txt, which is what SPI is expecting. And then now I have that file. Excuse me. So the default contents of the SPI logicals, as you mentioned, you had the data and the log. So as I started using this, I found some interesting things that I could do that kind of help the organization of things. And that is to add a couple of other logicals. Well, first of all, one of the things we do, especially in a cluster, because SPI is cluster aware, but if you have systems that have multiple system disks or cross-platform or whatever, you kind of want to move things to another disk. I prefer to do that anyway, to have as much of a read-only system disk as I can, so you can do it out in queue manager and hide have everything off there. So we'll break this down and create. I didn't have the other thing in here for space, but where I look for node name. But basically, we're going to create SPI data to be in the data in the subdirectory for each node. We have the log file, which we just moved to another, system disk. So these ones are new. They're not included, but I have them here, so they're not really. I shouldn't say they're not sanctioned. There's a lot of configurations you can do, but I'm just going to pass on what.
But is that, sorry to interrupt, John, but is that worth mentioning that more often than not, when we sell the product, we will try and sell some services with it. So you get some expertise, you get some time from John to make sure that things are set up in the most optimal way for your environment.
Not the stupid jokes. Thank you. So, yeah, there's a couple of them, I call whatever you want. I just have to call this one user log and com and then user com. I'll get into what these are doing later. And then we have this is also included the OVO dollar log here, which is from the old OpenVMS days. By the way, I'm trivial. SPI stands for Smart Plugin. Part of the OpenView, they had smart plugins for all different architectures and things. So it's just a centralized console. So consequently, the VMSSPI, because it was born as a plugin, it doesn't have a fancy interface yet. Again, I'm going to focus on that spare time. Okay, so okay, I got ahead of myself. Basically, we talked about one of the reasons and the benefits of having node-specific configuration things is because in a cluster, for example, if you have a non-MSCP served SCSI drive mounted on system A, system B wouldn't see it, and it was like, oh wait, this drive doesn't exist, and it starts sending alerts, false alarms. So it makes configuration administration a little bit easier. The log file. So the by default, the VMSSPI log is set to a subdirectory on the VMSSPI root, which is on the system disk. I don't like having things right into the system disk, so I just redefine the logical to move it over and move it to the same cluster common disk. It's something to keep in mind. SPI doesn't create log files per se. It creates an output file, so it will not report, every minute, hey, I checked this, didn't find a problem. It's not that verbose of a log, but if it does run into an event that it has to trigger an action, you'll see the contents. You'll see the action get triggered and the result of it in there. So it's good for troubleshooting if you have some odd behavior. Because all of the out files contain the module name, performance system or security, as well as the node name, it's okay to drop them all in the same directory. For example, here it's this is for performance, for IE10, and for security in the system. So each node will have its own.
Do they all have to go over at midnight, et cetera?
No, they will.
Just a file. Like, can I type like tail?
Yep. Yeah. It's a straight text output file. And it will regenerate a new one when if you restart SPI. But yeah, that's a good question. They don't grow that much. They're like I said, because it's not logging everything like this, logging anomalies and exceptions. It doesn't grow that much, so it hasn't been too much of a. Okay, so this one, VMSSPI.com. So completely off my so we had a customer that wanted to, they were on Alpha, they wanted to go at IE64. This was a couple years ago. And they said, we can't because we use Hitman. We use Hitman to catch looping jobs and to replace missing processes. So if you can make it do that, then, then you can provide us a solution that will go to integrity. So we started doing that. And we were able to resolve that issue. And I'll get into it a little bit more later. But some things that that are specific to SPI, like jobs that are doing restarts or they're stopping queues or they're lowering priorities or things like that. You could put them anywhere on your system, but I chose to have them in a specific, well, actually ones that handle system functions, and this is just my logic. We go into VMSSPI.com, things that were, user com would be things that are site specific, like if I had a restart job or something, I would put it in there. And then VMSSPI user log would be just logs from those things. It just keeps the clutter out of your production areas. But there's more to this that I'll get to on the side. And they don't have to be. I mean, this was I was just testing this, and this is what worked. You can put more error graphing in it, but in the output in the out file, this is if I have a thing that says you have a job that's running losing CPU, I'll just show it and then I'll set it down to 1. The alert has already gone out, so I've kind of mitigated the impact. And another one is stopping the queue. This is if the queue was running but you didn't want it to be running, this would stop the queue. This I added in later because I was getting some false responses. So it's like, well, let me see the queue to show it and then stop it and show it again.
But a point there, sorry, John, is that that SPI is actually passing in some details to those commands.
It's in some cases in this in the queue, that's why it passes in this P1, but that's all it knows. And we'll get into that a little later when we talk about the missing process, because that's all it knows is the process is missing. It doesn't know who ran it, what any of that. Next good segue. For example, we got we had a bunch of test processes on the system. So basically, when it comes up, it does this. It'll run a detached process. It can specify the UIC. It can specify where the log goes. It can specify the command procedures coming. I can give it a new process name. The thing is, that if this happened through, and there is SPI will allow you to do this. It'll by default. It will call us the Seder manager restart.com, and you can populate that or make pointers however you want. All right, so the configuration, as Brett mentioned, there's two main files. There's the configuration.dat that defines what we're going to monitor, and we have the messages.txt that says what we're going to do. To run the configuration program to generate that VMSSPI configuration.dat in the bin directory on VMSI root, there's a executable VMSSPI configure system.exe. And when you run that, that's going to go out and pull your system. That's on the next slide. Excuse me. It'll pull the system, look at the current processes, the disks, shadow sets, batch jobs, batch queues, print queues, LAN devices, and then it will create that license database. And as I said, it will give you 90 days as a temp license for that. So something that's interesting we can do later on. There we go. We can run this. You can create a foreign symbol for the executable, and then pass it a P1. Like if you just wanted to do, say, you had an activity, changed a bunch of disks, or you made significant changes on the system. You don't want to run this configuration again because it will overwrite everything. So you can, like I said, create a foreign symbol and say just disks, and it will create like a kind of a stub file. It will just pull the disks, and you can take what you need out of that and manually put it into the configuration. And that's kind of helpful because after all of the things that are at the beginning of the config file will get overwritten with the full configuration file with the new config.dat. So we want to protect that when we can. So this is the first couple lines of it. It's pretty well documented. Give it a cluster name. The integral defaults to 60. I changed it to 30 because I'm patient, but there's actually several different counters to intervals depending on what we're looking at. For example, CPU utilization will be 1 minute, page file free is 1 minute, et cetera, et cetera. It's up there. Looping process is 2 minutes because we need to kind of take a couple of polls to make sure that we're still looping and we're not just having a burst of energy. Process metrics are 10 seconds. Security things are real time because they need to be brought resources. All right, time periods. There's a couple of time periods that are in here as just kind of placeholders, but these can be very useful. You can call them whatever you want. I have one called batch start, batch stop, daytime, nighttime, viewthing, 1 hour. And you can define them. You can't specify days. I think you can specify time of days though. So for example, I want this batch started when the queue started from noon to midnight. This comes into play when we're looking at infectional queues. I created a queue called PJS_test2. Starting period is going to be always, stop period is going to be never, pending threshold 1. Also have one for PJS test 3. It's kind of great. I don't have to walk over. I want it running at nighttime and stop during the day. I work for places that would during the day, their production environment, they would run jobs that would just dump things in the queue, but they don't want to run until after hours. So the queue's got to stay stopped during the day and we'll have problems. So we can accommodate that. So yeah, you always want to use these values in pairs. The rest of the configuration file is pretty, like I said, it's pretty well documented. It'll pull and show your processes and your disks and your shadows and print queues and batch queues and everything. They're all listed out. This is at the end of the one of the last things in the configuration of that file, and this is what we report on for security. This is something we kind of want to. We want to look at more specifically if you're using a syslog aggregator like Slack or Spawn, David trace, pager duty, or David dog duty. I'm not that. So you can disable the ones that you don't want reported. Now keep in mind this does not affect auditing at all. All of your stuff that you have auditing completely turned on for everything is still going to your file. This is going to be what gets reported to on email, and also what's going to be handled to be sent over to you over the interface.
So just to be clear, it's completely independent of auditing. I can have auditing enabled. I can have auditing completely disabled, but enable here and
It's not going to hear anything.
No.
It actually shuts itself off. If you try to start it up, well, it's.
okay. So I said completely turn off auditing. How about if I turn off most everything in auditing, but it's enabled here, still no go. You have to have it. In other words, you have to have the audits enabled. And actually, we should be saying audits. It's alarms, correct?
Yeah.
You could dial down VMS auditing. I mean, SPI is just taking the feed, and if it's something that it's interested in, it will report on it. But if it doesn't get any feed,
yes,
it
is
Okay, so that's exactly what I was trying to determine. So it's basically taking the audit service alarm feeds, and we really should be precise about this.
Correct.
Audits go to the file, and you guys, I think, are taking the alarms.
That
That go
would
to
be,
outcome. They go to a security enabled operating.
yes.
Right, so you guys are taking alarms, so we really should be precise in the language. It's alarms, but they have to be enabled for this to work at all. Okay.
yes. This does not. Your initial question, if I misunderstood, this does not run in parallel to audit. This actually has a mailbox. Yeah, and we're transferring stuff in the mailbox over to SPI, which is an important point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, got it.
Apparently using physical props on this one. So that was the VMSSPI dollar configuration. The messages file is is like what we're gonna do with this information. Something to notice, to make note of, the comments in messages that text are hashtags. Number signs, pound signs, whatever generation.
Sorry.
Mini tic-tac-toes. Oh, no, it's totally fine. I'm sorry, that wasn't to point that out. We're on the configuration when all the comments are exclamation.
I was having a Linux day.
My login.com, the first line is says being dash on it.
I feel good.
Just knows. Okay, as documented above, organization code is required, although it's just required for usage. I don't think it's used for anything else. The organization name, you can use, it's got to be in quotes. And you can have spaces in it. Organization code cannot. And every line in the messages that text ends in a semicolon. If you don't put a semicolon in, you won't complain about it when you close it, but when you go the next time you start it, like, hey, I got a problem. In order to get email, we want to change the SMTP gateway to use this slide. So it knows how to get messages to us. Okay, email list. This is another interesting one that we you can tailor pretty heavily. There's a couple of default ones that come with it, but you can create different lists for different things. Like I have one for proc missing, one for looping, one for test queues, generic test, wait developer. I've been experimenting with sending via text or maybe I haven't tried PagerDuty number, but I, as far as I know, it's working. I haven't like given extensive testing, but these are we'll see what we can plot these in. So different events you can send. You can send to different mailing lists, and you can populate. I mean, I just have one on here, but if you have multiple people that need to be on here, you just separate it with a comma and then make sure that the semicolons are put in. Okay, messages text. This is log interface, and this is probably the interface. Having questions about this, and might have the persons to answer Brad. But as we said, we support yeah, there's Datadog, Dynatrace, PagerDuty, Slack. If you don't do anything, I think the default one it will be
There's a dummy one.
the no one. Yeah, this one will be. Yeah, it will always be uncommented.
And that dummy one can actually be used for debugging, right? I mean, you can kind of turn on a debug level and it will start writing the junk to the out files.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do that. So this is basically just we supply with an API, and you can, as of version 24, which came out in July of this year, call it 24. It's 9.0 something. You can run two of these. Before that, you can only run one. But you can't separate the data. All the data will go out to both interfaces. So you can't say, well, just send my security stuff here and my operational stuff there. Is that
is
something
correct.
we can?
We could look at that, something
Yeah.
like that, we could filter it, yes.
Okay, and also in here, you can disable reporting for an entire class. So you can, I think they're predefined as operation performance, security availability, and none. And in the alerts, it will have a classification. And so if you want to disable an entire, like all your operational stuff, you have a downtime window, you're doing some disk stuff, and you have to shut your jobs off, or get the disk not drives, or whatever. You can disable some of these so that they're pretty handy for several times. So this is an example of one of the messages. I mean, we talked about time. Yeah, we talked about the time windows in the mailing lists and all the other stuff. So on here, some of these will have text. I think I've already modified this. You'll have a default text that's in quotes. So this is to identify the alert. It's very you can do this as an unknown or a minor, major, or something like that.
Information. So
Yeah. And in this case, if this, I picked the one that's dash queue not stopped, the mailing list, something goes wrong, it's queues. Throttling, this is, throttling has to do with the frequency of the notification. If you have throttling to 0, you will get a notification for every, so for every, sorry, every event that happens. You set the throttling to 1, you'll only get notified no matter how many events happen within the interval period, you only get 1.
And that's to prevent stalls.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I once took down a government department's email system. I'm not having a throttle. Not with SPI, but with another piece of software where I had a kind of a similar concept going on. So when I started putting this together, I thought, I'm going to stick the throttle in here today. Yeah.
Yeah, that can be handy because I've had problems with like, queue manager failed or something happened with a bunch of queues or I get a bunch of, performance alerts. And it just did this snowstorm of emails. In here, you'll see that there's some flexibility with some of these, the action and the text. In this case, so you can hard code the subject to be this, or you can actually fill this text out to be something, and you can plug in some of these variables to plug in to identify things. We left it blank because we're handling it down there. Classification in this case is operational. But here's the threshold. This is a simple one. I forgot I was going to put one in for it was direct IO. I get stuff on all the time. You can specify what the values are, and if you see the value, then you'll do these things. So in this case, the value being 1, which means queue is not stopped. We're going to run this action. And again, this is one of those things where I said, hey, let's put this in an SPI specific area so we can kind of keep all of our stuff together. So we're going to do this, and because we're passing, it's getting past P1, we're pulling into the queue. And the email stuff, this is the actual text that we're sending, batch queue message object is not stopped on whatever node it is. So this goes through, runs the procedure, pops it out to the output file, to the out file. And then next polling interval comes up, and if the key, the queue is like it's supposed to be, and the value is 0, it will send, and then this is kind of an optional thing. It will send a message saying, hey, the queue has been stopped. Even if it's not stopped, now it's stopped. And then there's a notes field at the bottom of all of these that you can put, these will appear at the bottom of the email.
And that notes field can be, because it has to be within double quotes and with semicolon, you can make that notes field, quite long. I mean, from a user's perspective, it might be, maybe the first time one of these problems happened and you figured out why it happened. So you can actually stick the notes in here. And so the next time that happens, whoever gets the message actually has the notes sitting right in front of them. Last time this happened, John, the cause was.
So I have a question.
Yes.
What is this data format? It looks like JSON.
It's something like that.
And why don't you choose JSON?
Because I figured, to be perfectly honest, Igor, in this case, having a more custom format is going to be more intuitive and more readable. But yes, you could have used YAML, you could have used JSON, could have used XML, fringe. But I decided that, this seemed like a more logical layout. But yeah, you're 100% right.
CMS is
Well, it's actually JSON is pretty sense.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
So this one, so this is another alert process missing. Oops. Severity is critical. Process missing. This I didn't modify this.
No, syntax.
Yeah, no, this is the default. I pretty much took the default configuration, which doesn't, it needs some massaging and customization. So here, we're passing the subject is well, actually, we can change this later because I changed an example. I'm sorry. If I do subject equals text, then it's going to plug this into the subject line of the this process name. You have the option to give the UIC, if it wasn't missing whatever node is on its operational threshold. So again, action is blank here, and we are calling it threshold 1, which means process is missing. We're going to go, the default is to run sysadmin restart.com and the processing. And keep in mind that when SPI came to, pull the system during that interval period and said, oh, yeah, this process is missing, all it knew is the process name was missing. So it doesn't know really anything else about it. So you could build, if you went with this route, you could build like bit of a matrix, and this is what we had to do with that customer that was replacing it in functionality. It's like, well, this job is running on this UIC and with this username, or it's running in this queue, or this log has to go here. I need to pass parameters to it. So you can do that all kind of offline outside of SPI. But one thing we kind of so definitely give me a shortcut once. So in one of the things that we have. Okay. So we changed and this is one I might have gotten a sign. So we did is we took the action out of this completely. So there's no action here. It's not. It'll look for it here, then it'll look for it here. And we can make as much information, the criticality is normal or critical, you can have actions in there, and these are the texts that get replaced up into the email thing. So in this case, we get an email that says, hey, this process is missing, whatever node it is. And then when it comes by and it says, oh yeah, I found processes when you started, then it'll come back and send another email. So it's nice that it gives you status, like this says the problem can be solved. So what we're able to do, rather than having to do all of the machinations with the restart.com and Sysala Manager, which is an option, you can still do that. And if you're coming from like Hitman or something that you can not directly import, you can use a lot of that data to build that. But we can also take within the configuration.dat file, in the process section, I specified the process IP is 1 through 5. And then, so the action for that, which this is something that's not in the default command line, and the default line of that. I'm going to run, and I did command this in the directory, VMS restart PGS test 1, in 2 and 3, and also only if it's on this node. So if I had a PGS test 2 that was for test 1 that was running on another node and it went away, and it didn't, one of your other options is cluster wide. If it wasn't there, it wouldn't get reported. So this is kind of handy to be able to really specify which process is on which nodes. And you can see every process its own restart. So in this case, this one is pretty straightforward. Run detached, username, output, input, process name. And I'm satisfied with restarted at whatever time. And the test, actually, the test thing I did just basically just showed the file. Okay, so after all of this, we put all the stuff together, and we haven't even actually run the product for 29 slides in. So let's run it, and you can either, well, I did it from here, but you can also do a VMSSPI dollar startup. SPI dollar startup, the first thing it does is run logicals. So something I don't remember if I put in here. Earlier on, when we created the configuration.dat file and created the messages.dat, they were in the VMSSPI data directory on the system. So once we created those over, I didn't have the slide in there, but we want to copy those files over. So next time you ran logicals, it points to the right place. So, after we started, we see that we have the 3 processes: system performance and security. And then within the VMSSPI log, we have a .9 file. We have one for security, so performance, as expected. So this is a kind of a glimpse at what the output file looks like. So when it starts up, we're starting the system module. The version, this is one of the good ways to get a version here, see it here. Another one is we talked about that foreign symbol earlier with the configuration. If you do it, VERS, VERS or version, it'll take the whole thing. It'll come back and tell you what version you're on. Informational stuff, we're loading the messages at that, so we didn't find any errors with that. Organization name, SMTP gateway, just basically kind of confirms that everything running okay. In this case, we're showing that Slack. Next time I'm not using red font. We're showing that Slack is something that initialize if we have other aggregators who do that. We can see that too. And also that we read configuration file, configuration .dat file, and it came back and it didn't issue any errors. Now, if you had a syntax error or you left out a brace or a semicolon or something, it'll call it out and it'll give you a line number, which is handy, except configuration file, it's like sometimes it's like 300 lines. So it doesn't count it. But yeah, you'll see that if you maybe one of the modules won't start, or you show system and you don't see that any of them start. It's like, okay, we got to start troubleshooting. You come here and it'll kind of tell you what happened, why it didn't start. Excuse me. This is when actually, so when we kicked it off on this system, these processes weren't running. The PGS task 1, 2, and 3, I had them running on a different system, so they weren't running here. We started it up. And as an accidental test, it came up and said, "Oh, hey, these processes aren't running." And it kicked out a message, and this is what's in that output file. So it's like I'm running action script. This, I think verbose. I don't remember if I turned verify on or if it's by default. But it says, "Here's what I did," and then this was the text message that I passed, and it's just our output. So it just sort of everything. Restarting at 17:03:27. And sure enough, if I go look at the system, I see one. I just did the message for one, but it also started up 3 for me, as it should have done. So over in Slack, meanwhile, we have we have a couple of. You'll get a notification in Slack, not necessarily email, when VMSSPI is started. So it started, and the security module started, and the performance module started at 17:03:22 for all of these. And then this is the one for the process startup, where I saw that it was missing 17:03:27. I think it was like 20 seconds later. It was within the first interval that it found it and then started it. And then so I see over here it's 17:03:58. So within 30 seconds, the process is back up and running. And I got a notification. This is again in Slack that the person that it was missing on this node, and then that it was restarted. And here's also the message for PGS test 03. Email on the email side this is the message that I get. Pretty straightforward, similar to all the same information that we had in the Slack message. 17:03 was missing. 17:03:50, whatever the time stamp was. 17:03:58. Process will restart. So it's like I said, it's kind of handy that it'll tell you if the problem's been resolved after notifying you. All right, so we actually didn't drill down into this too much.
But 5 over.
Oh, no.
Are you up next, Greg?
I am, but I'm patient.
Oh,
I believe that.
This is important to my boss, so.
Yeah, this is my last one. All right, so again, we talked about the mailboxes being linked up. If you send everything, I mean, no auditor is going to want to see object access stuff. So you'd be a little judicious about what you send to your, because a lot of times it's because of auditors that want to see your security stuff. So they want to see, login failures and attempts and breaking attempts and things like that. So you can appropriately send that, but we don't recommend sending everything over, because what happens is going disk to disk or audit from system to disk and right into the audit file is fine. That's not really an impact. Having this stuff go from one mailbox to another mailbox, and then SPI has to format it out to
Where it was.
formats it to be transferred over the network to your syslog interface. So if that gets jammed up or this gets slow, it will stop. The audit mailbox for audit server won't clear out fast enough. And then anything that needs audit, starting the process, logging in, everything completely stops. And we've had people lose notes and whole clusters.
Fundamentally, it's not an SPI issue. It's just the fact that, you know, if you do something
Right.
stupid, you can literally flood that man.
Yes.
You do,
I'm sorry. One thing.
Liam, hang the
All right,
clock.
real quick, go through this, take advantage of the time period definitions, look at the mailing list stuff, use text in case you do the addresses. Use the common user, like logicals, whatever you want, just the concept of having that stuff separated. We might visit having that as part of the fall. And again, worth mentioning again, don't send all of your security events. All right, and this is where I ask your questions. Does anyone have any questions? All right, if you do, you can send an email to support VMS software if you're already running it, or if you have any questions about getting up and running, you go to sales@vmssoftware.com. If you have any like generic questions, you get jammed up or something, you can send email to me, John John.Cedar@vmssoftware.com. And I'll create we're kind of keeping track of the tickets. I'll create a ticket for you and answer the questions. That might be the fastest way to get some very specific question. So if nobody has any questions, I apologize for running over.
Give us a sense, they're gonna publish all these, including the audio recordings as well.
Oh, you don't want those.
No, no.
you never know.
Yeah, I think everything's getting recorded on the team.
Isn't it?
All right.